2014 Planning Board meeting. I want to rise and to do the Pledge of Allegiance, but there's no flag in here, so we have to look outside over there. There's one right out in the front. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to tonight's Planning Board meeting. Please be aware of the fire exit, which is in the back of this room. In the event of an emergency, please move in a calm and orderly fashion down this out the door, and do not. There's no elevator. Meetings are recorded by the secretary for the purpose of a record and minutes, so please identify yourself each time you come to the podium and speak into the microphone. The board will follow the items in the order that they appear on the agenda. After the case has been called, the applicant and a representative shall come to the podium, identify him or herself, give his or her address, and then present their case. The planning board members will then have an opportunity to question the applicant. If this case is a public hearing, it will be open for public input, at which time anyone wishing to speak to the board regarding this application will come to the podium or come to the mic, identify themselves along with their address, and direct any questions to the board. Once all public input has been completed, the applicant or site representative will be given the opportunity to respond to any public input. Once all public input has been completed and all questions have been satisfied, the case will be closed to public input and the board will then move on to a decision. No further input is allowed after that point. Michelle, would you read the first case, please?
First case on the agenda is case number PB 1403-1. Upon the matter of request by Peter Wayner, architect, acting as agent for Parkside Diner, LLC, for revised site plan approval to convert the existing landscaped island into an outdoor seating area with a maximum number of seats of 19 on premises 4353 Culver Road in a C commercial district.
Okay, Mr. Wayner, you want to discuss the application, please?
Hi, good evening. Pete Wayner, 98 Fairview Crescent. I'm here representing the Pappas and Parkside Diner tonight, 4353 Culver Road, as you said. We're looking to do a fairly minor modification to the existing landscaping bed in front of the restaurant. They found that there's been a small demand for some exterior seating, and to that end, we are taking out the existing gravel landscaped area and putting in a semi-pervious brick paver patio. As the application stated, we're looking at having seating for approximately 19 people. The area is going to be surrounded by wood timbers, round timbers that have a nautical theme, if you will, so like a dockwood, which are in keeping with the existing neighboring miniature golf course. We're going to be using 1.5-inch rope, nautical type rope, to connect between those, so it'll create a bit of a barrier. That area that we're in question is a completely curbed island, so there won't be any impact. A potential impact would be minimized due to that, or any cars in the area. At the end, we're remaining a bit of the landscaping and adding a wash stone mulch with a couple of northern sea oats and blue oat grass, which are fairly low-growing plants, but they throw out an occasional frond that mimics its name of oats, which is again in keeping with the nautical theme. I think that about summates what we're doing there. If there's any questions.
Does anyone, why don't we start with, start at the far end there. Greg, why don't you start, Greg?
Thank you. First of all, I feel a little bit uncomfortable, Peter, with as the chairman of this board, you making the presentation. I wish somebody else from your firm would have done that. But that notwithstanding, I've been by this property many, many times, especially noticing in the last couple of weeks. And the only redeeming value aesthetically to that property is the existing landscape that's out there. I just don't see how this is going to improve the appearance of the property, but at the same token, I have a really hard time telling somebody, an owner of a piece of property, what they can or can't do with the property. So it's within all of the requirements to do such a project. So I will tell you that I'm very reluctantly going to vote yes on this.
Anything else, Greg?
That's it.
Ray?
Pete, I happen to agree with Greg. I think it's extremely difficult for the chairman of our board to stand before us and for us to be expected not to be impartial. It's a little difficult. However, I happen to agree almost identically with my counterpart, Mr. Goder. I'd like to see more green space in areas such as that, as opposed to, and I grant you, you're asking for low grass type landscaping, etc. Again, reluctantly, I will be voting yes.
Is that all? Ray?
Yes, thank you.
Rich, do you have any?
Chairman.
Just briefly, I like the application. I think it's consistent with what we approved last year for Shamrock Jacks. I think that corridor is really coming along quite nicely. I think the ability to have some outdoor seating is not only good for business, but it helps the area. And I like the continuation of the theme that's consistent with the adjacent business next door. So I like what I see, and I think we properly vetted it at the workshop.
I have nothing to add at this point. Is there anyone else, any other things from the board before we open it up for public input? Hearing none. Public input is open. If anyone would like to speak to this application, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and start talking. Seeing none, closing public input. I'd like to take care of the secret first. Last week, or 2 weeks ago at the workshop, we went through the short environmental form. Does the town engineer have any input, or Nick, do you have any input to this?
I summarized some of the environmental considerations for the board's consideration this evening. I'd like to recite those.
That'd be great.
That the town code allows this use by approval of the planning board. The uses is compatible with the general character of the surrounding area. Proposed modifications will not impair the character or quality of the existing community. The proposed modifications will not significantly generate additional traffic above and beyond current levels, nor place additional loading on water, sewer, electric, or natural gas utilities. While the site is in an archaeological sensitive area, the proposed construction involves excavation to a shallow depth for which prior disturbance can be documented. And while the adjacent structure, Whispering Pines Miniature Golf Course, is on the National Register of Historic Places, the action will not adversely be affected by the proposed action. No historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources would be impacted by the proposed modifications. Proposed modifications will not increase energy usage. And the setting is within a fully developed area, not within wetlands, bodies of water, natural areas in the immediate vicinity of the site, and that the proposed action will not result in the potential for erosion control by normal practices. And offer that for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Mike. Nick, did you have anything to add to this? No? Peter, did you want to respond to any of the comments of the board?
I don't know that it's necessarily germane, but the reason I'm doing this tonight is because Jim and Diane are personal friends of mine, and I'm doing this for no remuneration. Their boys and my son grew up together, and so I offered to help them out in this regard. As far as the aesthetic improvements, I do disagree. I think that a hardscape is as valid as a landscaping of plants and such, and I do think that this improvement is in keeping with the adjacent miniature golf course. There was another question about the disturbance. We will not be disturbing anything beyond about a foot below the existing grade in an already disturbed area. And I also provided the updated drawing as per your request.
Okay. Any other questions for the board, or to the board, or? No? Okay. With this particular action with respect to SECRA is an unlisted action and propose a negative declaration. Does anybody want to make that motion?
I will make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And one abstention. 2 absences. Mr. Plukas, would you like to make do we have any conditions to this application?
None that I'm aware of, Mr. Chairman.
Very good.
I would make a motion on Planning Board number 1403-1 upon the matter of request by Peter Wayner, architect, acting as agent for Parkside Diner LLC for revised site plan approval to convert the existing landscaped island into an outdoor seating area with a maximum number of seats of 19 on premises 4353 Culver Road in a C commercial district. I would make a motion for approval.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One abstention. Motion carries. Thank you. Michelle, you want to read the next item? And Peter, you want to get up here?
Next item on the agenda is case number PB 1403-2. Upon the matter of request by T.Y. Lin Engineering and Architects, acting as agent for the Animal Service League, Incorporated, for revised site plan approval for site improvements including curbing, paving, landscaping, fencing, and signage on premises 10 Dubois Lane in an M manufacturing district.
Good evening. Bob Kiefer, professional engineer with offices at 255 East Avenue in the city of Rochester. I'm here this evening representing the Animal Service League. Joining me this evening are Andrea Catone and a couple other members of the Board of Direction for the Animal Service League. As you are well aware, the Animal Service League is located at 10 Dubois Lane. They're a nonprofit organization that advocates for better care and treatment of animals, particularly the unwanted and the ill and the abandoned. They provide opportunities to have those animals placed in permanent homes, much like foster care for children. What we're proposing tonight will not impact the way that the Animal Service League functions. We're simply trying to do some improvements to the site, which will generally improve the serviceability of the property and also improve the appearance as it's viewed from the street. This project started a couple years ago. At that time, Larry Henniger was the Commissioner of Public Works Director of Development Services, and he approved a plan to do some repaving and some replacement of the timber curbing on the property. He considered it a maintenance item. We weren't changing the drainage or changing the site in any substantial way, and that repaving operation, resurfacing operation was commenced in the summer of 2012. A dispute arose over the location and the appropriateness of a sign that was located in the timber cribbing next to the 30-foot wide common driveway that serves the parcels to the rear out near Dubois Lane. And at that time, the finishing of that work was halted. There's been a continuing discussion with the adjacent neighbors and their attorneys with regards to the easements, and we think we have that at least consensus on where we stand with that. This past fall, we drew a permit to replace the existing chain link fence that surrounded the property with a solid vinyl fence. And once again, that project got underway but was halted when a concern was raised about the safety and the visibility of replacing a chain link fence, which you can see through, with a solid vinyl fence, which prevents you from seeing through it. And so we've made some concessions with regards to that and have moved the fence back away from the 30-foot wide common driveway area along the north side of the property so that the businesses to the rear will have better visibility as they back out of their parking spaces. We're proposing to replace the timber curbs, landscaped areas along the north side of this property with a raised concrete curb. One of the reasons why this needs to be done is because the timber is deteriorating and it's right next to the travelway and so forth. So we're proposing to replace that timber with a concrete curbed area very much similar to the raised island that currently exists in front of the facility. And we're going to landscape those areas. And the landscaping plan was provided with the information that was submitted. We're also proposing to add a sign to the building. And in this application, there was a elevation view of the front of the building and a picture of the sign that we're proposing to put up. We incorporated all of these things into a single application because we wanted to address all of the outstanding issues associated with the site, and we believe that this application does that. We are in receipt of the comments from Labella Associates dated March 7th, and we responded to those item by item on March 14th. We're also in receipt of the comments from the Monroe County Department of Planning, and we responded to them item by item in the same submittal of the 14th. I'd be happy to go through those item by item, but they were not particularly controversial in my opinion. So if it's your pleasure to go through them, I will. If not, we can maybe defer to the town's engineer to see whether or not they're satisfactorily addressed. We also transmitted to the town on March 18th a copy of the instrument survey that was done by Warren McGrail's office with a very small change to that, namely the addition of one more Liber and Page reference as it relates to the easements on the site. With that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Mike, introduce, take the next step and talk a little bit about the engineering.
Has addressed our comments in his letter of March 14th, and we had a follow-up discussion today, Bob, regarding the drainage, and I was just wondering if you could just kind of put that out there so everybody understand regarding the drainage and the concentration of flow resulting from the curbing in that catch basin?
I'm going to move this closer to the microphone.
Val, could you turn it just a little bit so the people here can see it as well, please? I don't know if it's possible or if you just leave it.
It's not going to be possible for everyone to see it.
Yeah,
At this point, the rest of the
I'm
board.
just saying the majority, Mr. Chairman.
That I'd be happy to hand out to anyone in the audience that would be interested in following along. Anyone else like to say something?
Feel free to move and stand if you want.
Bob, if you could turn just a little,
Well,
'cause I
maybe
can't even see it.
I will put it on this side.
I don't know.
There's always a way.
Anyone send it over here?
Bob, is this the same drawing we have in our packet, or is this a revised drawing?
The one that's on the easel has the revision of the additional Liber and Page along the top of the sheet. But the technical aspects as it relates to storm drainage haven't changed with any of these drawings and haven't changed since the project was constructed. This is the existing building. There's a parking field that runs around the building. There's a catch basin located here at Double Blythe Lane. The water coming down the common private driveway to the north follows along in this direction and drains into this catch basin. The area behind the building and along the south side of the building comes out to Dougal Place Lane and drains to that catch basin also. The timber cribbing existed along this area here, and for an extended period of time, many years, the water has flown along the edge of that to the west towards that catch basin. We're proposing the replacement of the timber curbing with concrete, but the drainage pattern will remain unchanged. When the decision was made to move the chain link fence from the southern edge of the 30-foot common driveway 10 feet back, actually 12 feet back, so it aligns with the corner of the building, we agreed to take this piece of pavement out, thereby reducing the amount of impervious area on the site even further. And by putting the curb in here and putting topsoil and lawn behind it, this area is now going to drain to the south around to the front rather than draining westerly along the 30-foot common private drive. So I think that what we're proposing to do is going to decrease the total amount of runoff very slightly, and it's not going to change the drainage patterns, and will have no impact on ultimately on the storm drainage of the site.
Can you just comment about the catchment, Bob? That's what I was getting to.
I'm sorry?
The catchment of the catch basin on the east side, west side.
This is an existing catch basin.
Yeah.
It has been there for as long as this project has been here. This has gone through several ownerships over the years, and I've been involved in working on this site by previous owners, and I have no history of any storm drainage issues associated with the water coming off of this site.
Okay, I guess we were going with this. You didn't provide any spot elevations to show catchment, but based on your experience in the berming that occurs, the drainage will not enter the adjacent property of the mall.
That's exactly right. Immediately to the west of this is a guide rail. Immediately to the west of that is a large retaining wall that you see when you're driving along the eastern edge of the Arundecoit Mall, Medley Center Mall. If you were heading from the south from the expressway up to Sears, you drive by that very tall landscape wall. None of the water from this site runs over that slope down into the mall. I believe that this catch basin ultimately ties into that storm drainage and would wind up being over by the expressway and Culver Road.
Thank you. So I guess just in summary, I think you've answered all of the questions outlined in our comment letter, Bob. I appreciate that.
I believe that I have. I would just add that it's refreshing to get the comments 2 weeks in advance of the meeting so that you have an opportunity to respond to the comments before you appear at public hearing. So I appreciate the fact that the town has adopted that policy.
Are there any questions from the board, starting with Jay?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
I'm sorry, what?
All my questions were answered at the workshop, and it looks like this looks fine to me at this point.
Rich?
No question.
I do have a question. Mr. Kiefer, you're one of the best that comes before us.
Thank you.
Why are we here to begin with? Is it an illegal sign?
The directory sign that's located at the west end of what was the timber curbing and what will be the concrete raised island is in violation of town ordinance. Because the sign is located on the Animal Service League property, the violation was sent to the Animal Service League. The sign is actually owned and serves the benefit of parties that are located to the west of this site. So there is an issue associated with bringing the sign into compliance. The Animal Service League's position is that it's fine to have a sign there, and that the sign can remain. The sign can be whatever the town allows with regards to sign will be reasonable and appropriate for the Animal Service League. We're simply requesting that the owner of the sign, the people who benefit from the sign, bring the sign into compliance. That is one of the issues associated with this site. There was the issue associated with visibility, backing out of this parking lot and being able to see down the common drive. There was an issue associated with whether or not the project would or would not need site plan approval to have a building-mounted sign. We're enhancing the landscaping, we're changing the sign type. We just wanted to fold all of those things into a single application and have it officially endorsed by the planning board.
Is this, Mr. Kiefer, and I'm going to address this to a degree to Mr. Weatherby. Is this sign in compliance, or has the town said anything about this sign to the applicant?
I was just confirming because this goes back a ways, so.
You may not have been there, Mr. Weatherby.
I was not, but I
So,
Yeah, at the time that the Animal League wanted us to cite them for the sign so they can get some action on it, but during our workshop, we discussed with the group, with our deputy attorney, he said, this can be considered a pre-existing sign as long as they don't change it or make it larger, that, because it's been there a number of years and it's not clear how it came about.
Right. There's some correspondence in here, I believe, from the adjacent, from the neighboring owner that, I think it is on. It says back in 1985 that there was a sign permit issued from the town. One hasn't been provided, but I guess based on that assertion from the neighbor's attorney that there was a sign permit back in the 80s. As long as the sign, doesn't change, I think the position here of the town is it's a pre-existing, non-conforming use. The permit was issued.
the sign could be okay, but the positioning of the sign. Is that?
The sign's going back from whence it came, correct? I mean, if
Right.
it goes out, it goes back.
The sign exists there today.
Right.
Can I assume that, based on this recent round of discussions within the town, that we're going to receive a letter from the town saying that the violation that was previously cited has been rescinded or resolved, or is a non-issue, and that,
Well, I
quote
think-
unquote, the Animal Service League is not currently in violation?
Right. I think it was a notice of apparent violation. I don't want to.
No, you're absolutely right. It's exactly what it said.
Right. Okay. So that can be clarified. Yes.
And so,
In
Great.
fact, we have to send a letter out. We already changed the record in the notice. I mean, the code compliance officer already made a note that it is pre-existing. He closed it out, but we should notify the Animal League people of that change.
yes, and I think that even the Ronnequoit Town Courts might want to hear that that was the final decision.
The other question I have, Mr. Kiefer, is we know that there's an easement here of some, and you could probably explain that, but the sign is supposedly in an area of easement, or could you,
There's a 30-foot wide strip that starts right there and ends right there. That is referred to as a common 30-foot wide ingress-egress utility easement that's referenced in the deeds for both the Animal Service League and for the parcels to the rear for access from Dubel Blythe Lane to these pieces of property back here. 10 foot of that 30-foot wide strip is a piece of property that's actually owned by the Spinwright Corporation, which owns the piece of property that's right here. This 10-foot wide strip, which is the center of that 30-foot easement, is owned by the Trimaldis, who own this piece of property and the next piece of property. This 10-foot wide strip is a piece of property that is owned by the Animal Service League and is encumbered by an easement for the benefit of the people behind us. We don't take issue with that at all.
okay.
And the deeds and the purchase offers and the other documents that have been provided and circulated by various attorneys indicate that when this piece of property was sold, the Animal Service League piece of property was sold, the owners of the remainder of the parcel reserved the right to have a directory sign out by Dubel Blythe Lane. In my opinion, they did not define very well where that sign was supposed to go. And it happens that that sign is currently a few feet, 2 foot, 18 inches south of the 30-foot wide common drive. It's been there for a long time.
My question is, and now for you, Mr. Kiefer, and again, I think you do a great job. When you present to us, you are awesome. It's to our attorney. If we make a decision this evening and there's an issue with easement, have we impugned ourselves or the town as it relates to where we say that sign can be?
Well-
again,
Right, so the language regarding the sign itself is not, doesn't come from the easement itself. In the deed that was transferred back in 1985, I think, from the Florida Land West Corporation to the
Mrs.
Trimaldis,
Trimaldi.
there was a reservation for the location of the sign, and the description there was on the northwest corner of said lot number 1, which is the property that we're talking about.
And in the strictest sense of the word, northwest corner of lot number 1, the northwest corner of lot number 1 is right there. Now, the
That would be the-
northwest corner of the lot that's not encumbered by the 10-foot wide easement is located right there.
Right. It's a matter of interpretation. If the current location,
It's not time to,
right,
no.
it's,
we offered you to stand up and move over to the side. Take your chair and move around.
right,
So I
but,
need to go through that again. or-
Yes, please, Mr. Kiefer, if you would.
Bring the microphone over though.
Come on up and stand, and you can watch what he's pointing at.
It's not from where you're sitting. I just want to see where you're pointing.
This is the property that's owned,
It's not, and it's not amplified. It only feeds into the feed, so.
the Animal Service League property is defined by this boundary right here. This portion of this site is encumbered by a 10-foot wide easement for the benefit of people accessing and entering and exiting the properties to the east and for utility easements. The northwest corner of the Animal Service League property is right there. This portion of the Animal Service League property is encumbered by a 10-foot wide easement. The northeast corner of the northwest corner of the property at the easement line is right there.
Where the sign currently is.
The sign is currently located about 18 inches south of that point.
And
Right.
Mr. Kiefer, what I'm getting to, and Greg, if I may, if we make a decision tonight based on where the sign can be or where the sign should not be, etc., there's an easement issue that could be decided in court, if I'm not mistaken. How would that impugn any decision we make this evening as it relates to the town of Arundequoit? And I don't know if, I'm just asking that question, because that's my concern.
okay. No, I mean, essentially, this is, the issue of the sign and the location of the sign, I mean, it's a private dispute between neighbors. So, I mean, I believe, and the applicant has said that the location of the sign is going to remain unchanged in its current condition.
The location of the sign as it exists today is acceptable to the Animal Service League.
Right.
Is it acceptable to others who may dispute the easement?
He can't testify to that.
I know, and that's unfair, Bob. Forgive me, I apologize for that.
I believe that this is the location that Mr. Trimaldi would like the sign to remain.
Right.
Okay.
All right, well, when we get to public input, then we'll ask Mr.
Right.
Trimaldi if
But
he so chooses to speak.
My point is, though, and I mean, when we say there's the easement, nowhere, the easement doesn't mention the word sign, has nothing to do with
You're
location
absolutely
of a
right.
sign. So
I
the
agree.
fact that there's an easement means nothing. The reference to the sign itself is the reservation in the deed, which does have the language northwest corner of the property. And I'll grant you, at the strictest interpretation, that's the absolute northwest corner of the property. But unless it's a specific, as we discussed at the workshop meeting, unless it's a specific meets and bounds description, you look at the intent of the parties as to, is that northwest enough, if you will. And if you agree with the location, he agrees with the location, I don't think there's an issue.
The Animal Service League believes that the location of the sign is northwest enough.
Okay, Mr. Kiefer, thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
No,
Thank you, Greg, by the way. Thank you, Bob.
I'd like to have this decision ultimately resolve all of the issues. So I'm happy that
Thank you.
that we're talking
Right.
about them.
That's kind of what
And-
we're trying to get to.
Right, and I will say right to your point, so the deed also has language that says any such sign shall conform to the requirements of the Town of Arundecoy Code. So if there are going to be changes made to the sign, then that has to come before
back
the town.
before-
Right.
Thank you.
It's going to stay where it is and look the same,
Great.
fine.
I just wanted to clarify. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah,
I
no
appreciate
problem.
it.
I have no questions at this point. At this point, we'll open it up to public input.
Go right ahead.
Pat Trimaldi, 20 Dual-Place Lane. Just a little history. I erected that building 32 years ago. And when I did, there was nothing but just land there, forest, grapevines, so there was no private drive going back there. So the planter he's talking about, I put in that. I put that over 30 years ago. He said there's a timber curb going all the way down. There is not a timber curb going all the way down. The sign I erected over 20 years ago, and I took a permit for that also with the town. Now, I don't have an objection to the concrete curbing going in. I do have a problem. And it's not only my problem, it's going to be the town's problem. I don't mind them putting a concrete curbing, but on the edge of the road is a very bad idea. This intersection down here, there's also, just so you know, I have the paving company with about 8 or 9 trucks. Then there's my mini storage, and then there's another contractor who just purchased a building in the rear who has unlimited trucks, has lowboys, and the property next to him is Spinrite, who has multiple, many 10-wheelers, tractors and trailers. When they come around this, to come into this private drive, right now, they're having a tough time. I am in the midst of reconstructing the private drive to make it so there's not going to be a problem. We're going to be able to come up and down there, and we're not going to have a problem trying to go by. Only one vehicle can go by there and everything. The reason that the fence that they wanted to put up, they wanted to put it on, right on the edge of the road. Well, in our parking lot, you can't pull out. I mean, my wife or my granddaughter, whoever's working in the office, they almost got killed a couple of times with the trucks coming down because they can't see you. And that was when they had the chain link up. And it was all weeds and everything, so we couldn't see. That was the only objection. We loved the fence, but we wanted it put back 10 foot. And I gave Bob a letter. He asked me for a letter. I gave him a letter and said, rather than go to the town or go to a lawyer, I don't want to spend no more money. If you move the fence back 10 foot, I will landscape that whole strip for you. I will landscape it, put bushes in there and everything. They turned me down. So anyway, the fence is being put back 10 foot anyway. But the problem we have is the curbing. When them trucks come around, or a tractor and trailer, they're going to be whacking that curb. That curb's going to get all broken up. And then the other problem we have is we're in the midst right now with the supervisor of getting Dual-Place Lane dedicated. And when it becomes dedicated, you're going to have a town truck coming down there to plow the road, and then they're going to need to back into the private drive. That intersection is tough right now. If they move it back 4 or 5 feet, the curb, I don't have an objection to it. And as far as the sign, probably with all this drive being redone, it probably would be a good idea if I moved the sign back a little bit so that intersection's opened up a little bit. I don't mind, I would do whatever I had to do if the town wanted me to. That's about it. I don't care about the concrete curb is great, but move it back 4 or 5 feet and we're good to go. Because I'm redoing that whole drive right now. And we're in the midst of trying to get a dedicated road, that should have been done before. I've already built Dual-Place Lane to dedication. It's all black and white, and that's what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question also. Aren't trucks coming from the north?
Well, we're coming down Dual-Place Lane, and then we're turning onto the private drive.
So they're making a left turn into the private drive.
Yeah, that's all you can.
How would they be,
Are they hitting the sign now?
No, they're not hitting the sign, but what's happening is.
Step up to the mic. Stay up there.
And when the timbers were up there, and by the intersection, they were hitting that. And then in the winter would be a tough thing too, to come around. The trucks make it halfway decent, but a tractor and trailer or a lowboy is having a real bad time.
But it's a left turn in, which would be the curbing would be on the far part of the turn, not the tight part of the turn.
You want to run the curbing right to the road. I mean, curbing right to the road, back it up 3,
Isn't
4, 5
that-
feet, and then we don't have a problem.
Isn't that where the timber curb was before?
No, there was no timber curb all the way down. There was a part of a timber curb here, and then there's a planter that extends out. Actually, the planter that I put in, it's really in the road. It really should have been added there anyway. It's not just along the line. It protrudes farther than the timbers were. But at that time, there was no road. There was nothing in there.
Are there any other questions?
Just one, if I may. You made reference to, Pat, if I may, you made reference to you don't have any objection to move it. You'd like to see the sign moved back. What do you mean by back? In what direction?
If this becomes a dedicated road, probably the best scenario is for maybe be moved back a little bit in this intersection, you know.
So going
Be opened
east.
up, so then when the town truck comes in, you back up and everything, there isn't gonna be a problem. I don't have a problem, as long as, I don't even care about my paving company, as long as people come down the road and they can see Ridgeview Mini Storage is there, that's all I care about. I mean, I'm paying a lot of taxes for both of these pieces of property. I'm paying Ridge Road East taxes and I'm not getting any service. And the Animal Service League for, you know, not for nothing, but they're not paying any taxes. And, you know, we pay a lot of taxes over here. I'm just trying to protect the property down here. I'm trying to get my customers so they can come down here. You know, unless you don't care, maybe we'll just close up another business or two down here. I'm just trying to do the best I can.
Well, with the way that this has been represented, moving the fence back, agreeing to the position of the sign, do you have any further objections to this?
I don't have. It was the town that told them to move the fence back, not me. I didn't do that. The building department could see that it was, I mean, it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to see that you don't put a solid fence right along the road. You can't pull out of the parking lot.
Any other questions of Mr. Trimaldi before we continue with public input?
None for me.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak with regards to this application? Seeing, whoop.
One come up.
Dick Fiverell. I own I own 40 and 50 Dubelbeiss Lane. And we are across the street, the easement there from the Animal Service League. I'm in favor of the project that's being presented by Mr. Kiefer and the Animal Service League. We've been down there since 2002 and before, and I never have ever seen any accidents or near accidents because of the driving up and down that street and turning in by the trucks unless they're out of control. We've had a couple situations where the trucks have driven down there at too quick a speed and they've caused accidents or hit something. But other than that, the curbing that's there has never been hit that I know of, the timbers. As a matter of fact, to be honest with you, the corner of my property on the southwest corner, all the trucks drive over every day. And all the people drive over the corner of my property. If I put a curb up right to the corner of the street, which I could do, then nobody's going to get down that. As a matter of fact, that was a big issue a few years ago when Mr. Trimaldi put out curbs, bumper curbs, blocking our access to our property from the easement side. Apparently he feels that nobody can drive down his road. And just last week, when we had the nice few days that we had, he was out there with his backhoe taking snow from his property and putting it out on the easement. Now, if that's not putting dangerous material so that the people are driving up and down in piles of snow and ice that are being put on there by him. So if he's so worried about the safety of the road, I would think he'd be a little more careful about that. But I'm full agreement with putting the curbs up, and the improvements that the Animal Service League have made have improved that property, and I think it's going to help resolve some of the issues down there.
Thank you. Hold on, I gotta see if there's anyone else from the public wishing to speak in regards to this application. Seeing none, we'll close the public input portion of the hearing.
Mr. Twaldy stated that he in fact constructed the timber curbing, timber raised landscape beds that go along this area 35 years ago. We're replacing them because they're rotting out and because we'd like to enhance the appearance of them, but the location will be identical for the concrete curb. The extension of the curb from the end of the building back to here is certainly not in danger of turning movements way down here. Once the truck gets around the corner, they're not going to be hitting a curb that's located 150 feet back.
Did the timber curbing extend to the property line?
It extended right up to the dual place right of way.
So you're
Or
replacing
what
it
would be the
basically
right of way.
in the situ with new material?
Exactly. And if we were to move this curb line back, there would be no landscaped island.
And I mean, I would think the tight curve turning would be left in and right out, which would affect the Accupape property, not the animal services property, especially
I
with large
agree.
vehicles.
And if this were moved back, there would be no landscaped island here because the turn movements coming out of these parking spaces, as tight as it is, so giving up 3-4 feet there is just not possible.
Any more questions of the board? Public input's already been closed, sorry. Yeah.
You just made a statement that it wouldn't make a difference on the other side of the town park.
Public input has been closed. Nick, did you have any comment about that was necessary that you wanted to make before? All right. Mike, maybe you could go over your review of the seeker application?
The code allows the proposed use. The use is compatible with the general character of the surrounding area. The proposed modifications will not impair the character or quality of the existing community. Proposed modifications will not generate additional traffic nor place additional loading on water, sewer, electric, or natural gas utilities. No historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources would be impacted by the proposed modifications. The proposed modifications will not result in any increase in energy use, and the setting is within a fully developed area, not within wetlands, bodies of water, natural areas in the immediate vicinity of the site, that the disturbed area is minimal and minimal potential for erosion control by normal practices, and that the project will result in a slight reduction in impervious area.
I think we did look at the short form question number 2. Does the proposed action require a permit, approval, or funding from any other governmental agency? If yes, list the agency, names, and permit. I believe the answer is no currently, but I believe the answer should be, there's a building permit that's necessary for this? This action? And this permit? And site, right.
Right, yeah.
So I believe that we should amend that to answer yes, with the permit or approval being planning board and building.
Yes.
Does anyone see any adverse impact created by this?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, the question number 2 is shouldn't that be no? It's any other body.
And the answer should be yes.
What other body needs to review
It's
this?
asking if the action requires a permit, approval, or funding from any other government agency. And the
Well,
planning
what other
board-
governmental agency has to, other than the town?
I believe government agency being the planning board and the building department for permitting. Correct, Greg?
I- Well, then everything, then the questions,
I thought that referred to permits from anybody other than the lead agency. In this
Right.
instance, the town was declaring itself lead agent in the secret review process.
yeah, I don't think it's, because the
think it's-
the question is germane then, because it always, no matter what comes before the planning board, it requires a permit from the town. But this says that it's any other governmental agency besides the town is the way I read it.
Mike, I don't know if you, I've typically seen that filled out as what municipal approvals are required in connection with the application. I mean, I don't think it's
germane to the
right.
matter, but I guess it could be yes or no, depending on your point of view, and neither affects this application's approval. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move with respect to SECR for PB 1403-2 that with respect to SECR, this is an unlisted action and propose a negative declaration.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to the sign, which has made my head hurt since 2 weeks ago when we first heard this application, I'm wondering, with respect to that, should we put a condition that you'll review, the planning board chairman will review the sign, the look and just to make sure that when we talk about it, when we say it's going to be a sign that's essentially the same, I would go with your judgment on what is essentially the same as being essentially the same. Is that? It's not the same sign though, aren't they?
It won't be, you're right, Jack.
Well, is it the same sign or is it a different? Are they yanking the old sign and putting it back in, or are they? It's the exact same sign.
I thought it was something different.
What happens if it's? I thought that it was a different. This is why it makes my.
The Animal Service League is requesting approval to build a building-mounted sign on the building. We gave you a
I don't care about that.
There's a directory sign that currently exists next to Duval Blythe Lane that identifies 2 businesses that are located to the rear.
I know.
I believe that we're going to need to remove that sign temporarily in order to be able to slip form the concrete curb and then put that sign back in the exact location where it is today.
The exact sign in the exact location.
Now, when I came to this meeting tonight, I thought possibly that the owner of that sign was going to need to get a permit in order to eliminate the violation that was in existence until just recently when the town determined that it was a pre-existing non-conforming sign and that a permit had been issued way back when. So I think that he's going to put the same sign back up, but he has the choice to put up a different sign.
I'm not putting nothing up, I'm not touching that sign.
There,
It's my understanding.
All right. No. All right. It's going to be the exact same sign.
No, he's saying you're not touching the sign, so.
Right.
No, nobody's gonna touch it.
Well, he's got to touch the sign.
I'll move it when he needs it, or whatever construction they're doing.
So then you're going to touch it. Somebody's touching it.
I'll move it. He can do what he's gotta do. I'll put it back in.
Perfect.
So let it be written. So let it be done. Praise the Lord.
All right, everyone, enough comments.
Sorry.
I would move approval, Mr. Chairman, of PB Engineering Architect acting as agent for the Animal Service League, Inc. for revised site plan approval for site approval, including curbing, paving, landscaping, fencing, and signage exactly as it is on premises 10 Dubois Lane in M Manufacturing District. Again, I need to.
I'll second that.
Mr. Chairman, before we vote, I just wanted to let you know that in the matter of full disclosure, Mr. Trimaldi has put in driveways at two of my two different houses that I've lived at, and I've been very pleased with his work. So I don't think that'll sway my
It would have
vote.
been better to disclose it at the beginning, but so you're saying there's a conflict?
I don't think there's a conflict, but I just wanted to disclose.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Seeing none?
The Animal Service League and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for investing in Arundel.
Guarantee you, the police get called when it's time to do that.
Case number PB 1403-3, upon the matter of request by Costage Engineering, acting as agent for CDE Partners LLC for preliminary final site plan approval and to determine seeker lead agent to construct a plus or minus 2,500 square foot Sonic restaurant with site-related improvements on premises 999 Eastridge Road, Depot Plaza in an M manufacturing district.
Good evening. I'm Mike Montalto with Costage Engineering. Office is located at 217 Lake Avenue. I'm here this evening on behalf of CDE Partners, LLC, Fran DeSimone, the local Sonic franchisee, for approval for development of a Sonic restaurant at the Depot Plaza location. Approximately a year ago, our firm turned in materials and was before the planning board and obtained approval for redevelopment of the existing Depot Plaza, the vacant Kmart, for the relocation of Tops, which is underway. At the time of that application, we had shown a approximately 5,000 square foot restaurant building located at the north end of the site between the Monroe Muffler facility and the existing bank. Subsequent to the approvals, the overall site plan approvals for the plaza in the beginning of 2013, the plaza owner has come to a prospective deal with Sonic for lease of outparcel space, which is approximately 0.8 of an acre of the 15-acre parcel. The building, as mentioned in the advertisement, is approximately a 2,500, it's actually 2,450 thereabouts, 2,500 square foot Sonic restaurant facility. It has 2 drive-through lanes. It has approximately, there's 45 parking spaces associated with it. There's approximately 11 of those parking spaces that are under what are called canopies that have menu boards for folks to be able to pull into those spaces and order from their car. So then you also have the drive-through element where they can drive through and, or standard drive-through menu reader, order their material, their food, and go on. And then this one also is a little bit of departure, I guess, of some of the other Sonic facilities, in that this one will have an indoor seating area, dining room for approximately 50 people, and we'll have an outdoor seating area for approximately 24. Stormwater management for the project, it was handled under the overall redevelopment of the plaza itself. The majority of the site lighting was handled under the plaza overall plan for their lighting. There's some very specific lighting that's being added around the building associated with maintaining the proper lighting levels there. The majority of the site lighting comes from the plaza lights that have already been redone as part of the Tops facility. There is a decrease in impervious surface area associated. There's, the lawn areas around the building that are being proposed with it. We did make application to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We do need a variance for the northernmost canopy area to allow the canopy to set approximately 28 feet from the roadway, where the setback requirement is 50. Other than that, it meets the requirements from the bulk area requirements from manufacturing. The overall plaza is over 100 and some odd parking spaces above what's needed. There is shared ingress, egress. There's a main, in a second I'll flip the plan. It's a little, I don't want to walk away from the microphone. It does honor all the access points from the site now. There's none new access points being created. We have prepared a traffic study. It has been submitted to town staff, the town engineer, and is currently, I believe, under review by Monroe County Department of Transportation. It primarily does not change the level of service of any of the access points for the overall plaza. There is a main signalized intersection. We've got a main northwest route from the signalized intersection at Ridge Road down in, penetrating into the site that serves Tops. There's a main east-west. We circulate internally through the site for the drive-through. There's a one-way traffic configuration. The building is primarily an ephes. With some stone accents. I do have a colored piece. I think what I'll do, only from the board being over there, and I didn't bring an easel and the microphone doesn't reach, I'm going to go over and flip the pages, kind of point out some of the elements, then come back. I think that'll kind of mark the end of the formal, and then we'll turn it over for questions. Six parking spaces that have a canopy with the order boards for ordering the food, and then the folks inside come out in the roller skates or whatever and bring that out to the cars. There's also another canopy area south of the building that has 5 more of those order boards. Dumpster enclosure at the southwest portion of what we consider to be the out parcel, Monroe Muffler Break, and the bank. I'll just stop for 2 seconds.
Do you have a mic for him?
No.
Will that mic reach or?
Why don't you give him yours here?
Yeah.
I'll point it in that direction.
I looked at one of theirs, how far. You know what? I'll just, I'll turn it around for you folks.
Here you go.
From a floor plan standpoint, there's an outdoor seating area, which is on the east end of the site. Indoor seating area. At that end, it's also coincides with the main entrance. So at the east end of the building, or where the main entrance to the site is, the patio area, is at the east end of the building, and so is the dining area. There's 24 seats outside. We also have we've made applications to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the front canopy area variance, and we've made application to the town board to allow the development of the restaurant in the manufacturing district. The plaza is an overall manufacturing district. And then I'll show them to you guys first, then I'll turn them around to the public to see. We did take the architectural elevations we provide them a color so you can get a feel for the sonic branding that occurs on the faces of the building. This is your east face of the building as you come in the entrance. This is the south side, and this is the north side, Ridge Road side with the pickup window. So there's and then the building, so it's got some stone accents, and then a general ephes, and it has the yellow sonic signs. There are some also directional signage throughout the site, identifying where the drive-through locations are and enter and exit points. There was a pylon sign shown in our application materials, which is not currently part of the application. When the national folks looked at it, they thought the Depot Plaza sign out front was a pylon sign location for them, and that actually has all the electrical service for the plaza, so that's going to remain. Any discussion of a pylon sign would have to be a separate matter that would come before the board. It's not part of the application materials. At this point,
Are you concluding your opening remarks?
Yeah, I think we did amend a couple of items in discussing things with the town engineer relative to the seeker form. We did amend a couple of responses to the EAF form. The site was reviewed, a year ago for the overall plaza determination. A negative determination under seeker was determined at that point. I think the departure in terms of seeker review standpoint really from this project relative to the previous one is the traffic generations. I believe as discussed with town staff and even in the workshop meeting, the hourly trip gens for the Sonic do generate more traffic than the 5,000 square feet sit-down restaurant. However, when you compare that, to the overall traffic volumes of Ridge Road and how the intersections function, there's no loss in level of service. So, it will undoubtedly generate more during the peak hour, but it's not where it has an adverse effect on the area transportation network. And that, is still also being reviewed by Monroe County DOT. It's also important to note that the owner of the plaza, in working through the county DOT process, also has an agreement to participate in any improvements from the plaza intersection standpoint, if anything else were to come into the plaza that pushed overall thresholds to require anything to be done from a traffic standpoint, which is becoming kind of normal for county DOT. So again, I think I'll complete my formal presentation, turn it over for any questions you may have.
Before we start questions from the board, we are still not declared lead agency, so we're not going to be making any findings as it relates to seeker or the site plan approval tonight. We just received the traffic analysis, and I don't believe maybe the town engineer has a chance to preliminarily look at it, but there's not going to be any real meaningful input on the traffic study tonight. Our intention is to take input from the public.
Yep.
We may or may not, at our prerogative, close public input after hearing from the public. And therefore, we may extend public input once the
you may
traffic analysis.
defer action on it until you've heard from.
We could certainly take questions and answers from the board, but I would also like to then open it up to public input. And then that may be something that you may need to react to in that regard. Do we have any questions from the board? Greg?
Not me, thank you.
Ray?
I love this. I absolutely love what you're doing. We've done the seeker, we've got through that. As long as the DOT says it's good, I love it. I'm going to take everybody back to 1962 when there was a big boy where Hess is now. And not that I remember, but I heard a lot about it from other people in the room. Not that I would ever remember that. But it's such a throwback, and it's exciting to me in that plaza. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that, how you set the parking, the canopies will only be seasonal, and we'll use that for additional indoor parking spaces to be able to bring more people in, more out. I like the traffic flow. I like the signage, I like the fact that you're not being obtrusive on Ridge Road. Everything has been well thought out. I can't wait. This is awesome, sincerely.
Thank you.
Is there a question there?
That's a compliment, Mr. Goder. That's a compliment.
Rich? Jay?
The signage on the top of the building, there's a yellow magnet-looking thing. Are there LED strips in here, or what's the, these are illuminated, right?
Top portion is, or at least, hold on 2 seconds. You're talking about
The arch, I wouldn't call it a golden arch, but
blue LED lights.
it's yellow or
Yeah, they are.
puce. I don't know.
They are
What's
LED
puce?
lit. The stripes on them are lit. It's a blue LED strip lights. The little, I don't know if they show up. Yeah, the blue ribs.
So the blue ribs are illuminated and the yellow, or
The yellow is not.
the yellow is not. And then the Sonic sign that's on the south,
Sonic signs are, they're internally illuminated.
and are they diffuse or do they show up as bright spots on the, are they?
No, it's a translucent panel with backlighting, so the whole port, the whole logo lights up in those
Okay.
colors at night. So during the day, you see those colors, at night, it's the same colors, it's internally illuminated.
All right, and then the downlights over the canopy are just, are they LED downlights?
LED downlights, yes.
And you've shown, there's a lighting plan that shows the photometric isobars that looks like it meets the code, so, good. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else, Jay? Before I open it up to the public, Mike, did you have anything you wanted to add from an engineering standpoint at this point?
No, we provided a letter.
All right. This time I'd like to open it up to public input. Anyone wishing to speak in regards to this application may do so now.
I just have a question.
You have to address the board at the microphone, please. Yep.
Just had a question.
You have to state your name and address first.
Carla Jelinek, 60 Beacon View Courts in Arundequoit. Is the road going to be accessible, that is the restaurant, from Ridge Road and just make a turn into the plaza, or is there a dedicated turn lane? Maybe I missed somebody saying it, but I'm just not clear.
Access to the Sonic is through interior roads on the plaza that currently exist. So you enter into the plaza and then you enter into the Sonic from roads that are already on.
From there. And entering the plaza, is there going to be, or is there a dedicated turn lane there? I go there rarely. Or is it just two lanes?
You're talking about exiting the plaza?
Entering and exiting the plaza.
Entering the plaza, you have access east of Monroe Bunker into, and you also have ingress and egress on the east side by M&T. I'm sorry, right across from
M&T.
M&T, thank you, thank you.
Gotcha. Okay. Now I understand. Thank you. Sounds like fun.
Thank you. Any other input from the public? Any discussion from the board about leaving the public hearing open? I don't know if anyone from the public would have any meaningful comment as it relates to traffic, but I can see that there being only,
Why not keep it open just in the event that there might be? I mean, it doesn't hurt us one way or the other. The likelihood is that there would be no commentary, but it's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
well, it's up to everyone, I suppose, but my inclination is to close public hearing. I don't know that the public, other than saying that there's traffic that would need to be addressed, I think that the report would address it. The county and the town engineer would review the report and make any findings as it relates to traffic.
I think most people in the town would like to see more traffic on Ridge Road.
I don't disagree.
Oddly, it's actually shrinking. In the last 5 years, due to the economy, the traffic generations are down. That's that speaks to the economy.
Rich, Jay, any input on public hearing input?
Honestly, I think that closing it isn't going to ruffle any feathers. If people want to, give comments, emails or whatever, we can certainly accept those.
We always accept comments in writing up into moment of decision. All right, have any opinion?
No preference either way.
I'm going to close public input at this point. I don't know that there's any other action with regards to this application tonight. We certainly appreciate your investment in Arundecoit, and we'll be seeing you again.
Will you be making an order, motion to defer action, or are we just holding?
We have requested our.
I want to make sure that we don't have.
I'm
any-
sorry, he was speaking at the same time you were, and I didn't
Sorry.
hear what you said.
I wasn't sure if you'd be making a motion to defer action until you have further comment, and if we're agreeing to stop any clock. I mean, we don't want to, we don't want
Generally,
one
I
of
think
those
we ask the
situations.
applicant if they would like to have their application tabled until.
All we're looking for, Mr. Chairman, if I'm not mistaken, is a traffic study.
All we're really looking for is that we can
Comment
declare
from-
ourselves lead agency, and then the subsequent traffic review.
Can we do that within a 30-day timeframe?
Well, wait a minute, do we have to be careful about the 60-day or 61-day, so
Yeah.
if the applicant is okay with us tabling the application, then,
We agree to, we would agree to stop the clock until such time, until
All right.
the county DOT has provided the comments, so that
all right,
you have the input you need.
I move to table, Mr. Chairman.
Technically, the application isn't complete until seeker and lead agency is standard, so there's no 30-day clock that we're really waiting on at this point. As far as
No, it's the 62-day or whatever from when we made application and asked you to make.
I just moved to table, Mr. Chairman.
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next case.
Where's the pastries this time, by the way?
Did we do that at the workshop meeting?
Well, I am. I'm
Yes.
looking at all these people here, they're hungry, they're hungry. Oh, this is, yeah. Thank you.
It's just like within days.
Next item on the agenda is case number PB 1403-4. Upon the matter of request by McMahon LaRue Associates PC, acting as agent for Al Gilbert for a woodlot environmental protection overlay EPOD district permit to continue clearing the sites, including grading, seeding, and mulching on premises 1027 Thomas Avenue, 45 Pattonwood Drive, in an RH River Harbor district.
Good evening. My name is Greg McMahon. I'm with McMahon LaRue Associates. We're here tonight representing Al Gilbert, the applicant, who is the owner and operator of Voyager Marine and owns several parcels down along the river, both on the north and south side of the Stutson Street Bridge. We're here tonight. Back in December, Al removed or had removed trees on approximately 1.4 acres on a parcel he owns south of the bridge. Unbeknownst to Al, those trees were in an EPOD, a woodlot EPOD, as designated on town maps. As said, those trees were removed during a 2-week period up just prior to the Christmas, prior to Christmas in December, at the end of December. And then probably a month ago, or a little over a month ago, the town came to the site and issued a notice of violation for the EPOD. He was ordered to stop work and prepare an application for an EPOD permit, which he contacted us, and which is why we're here tonight. It is his desire at this point to complete, basically when the weather permits, which hopefully is coming up here shortly, to be able to backblade the area he's cleared, at least get some seed and mulch on it, and to finish removing the lumber that sits. All of the wood, all of the trees have been removed from the EPOD area. They're on a cinder area that was, I think, last used by the state of New York when they constructed the O'Rourke Bridge. So that's, in summary, that's what we're here for. Again, Al, at the time he removed these, had no knowledge of the woodlot, the fact that those trees were in an E-pod, and his efforts were in an attempt to clean the area, make it more presentable for the people doing business with him, clean it up. There was a lot of debris, deadfall, and felt that converting this area to a lawn grass area was in the best interests of his tenants, the occupants of his marina. There's no intent now at this point in time to develop that land, use it for boat storage, do anything with it other than to landscape, to grow grass. As I think everyone knows, that property has been under contract for quite a few years, and was known, or has been known, as Lighthouse Point. There was several actions that took place regarding cleaning a hazardous waste site that is north of the bridge, not in this area. And due to the economic problems that started in about 2008, those plans have been on a slow track. He still hopes to consummate that deal and turn this property over to someone interested in developing it. But right now there are no short-term plans to do any development. So I think at this point we're prepared to hear any comments or listen to what the board has in mind.
Well, I'm going to start out by not much of a question, but I guess a comment. And I think you're, perhaps I'm presuming, but universally going to find people are fairly upset and disappointed at the situation. And ignorance of the fact that there's an E-pod on the property is not an excuse for what was done there. I'm not sure that the plan as presented is anywhere near adequate for anything that we would consider at this point. I don't believe that grading and seeding is what we're going to be something that we accept in the long run. I'll leave that to the rest of the board and their opinions also, but I'm not quite sure what to do exactly in this regard. I think that we're going to have a lot of questions, but on a plan that's not yet presented. I would hope that public tonight will, help give us some meaningful input as to what they're seeing. I know everyone's going to be, I'm presuming that everyone is going to be disappointed, at least, and perhaps angry over the situation. So I think that may be universal, but what I really would like to get is some meaningful input from people as to how and what they suggest. I don't think that anyone can go back and put back mature trees, and I don't know what quite the solution is, and I guess that's to what we're looking for public input, if I would.
And I think we're prepared to prepare a mitigation plan. I think we'd like to hear the same thing that the board would like to hear.
The unfortunate thing is I don't know what, mitigating is, sheesh, even if you put the biggest trees possible, you're not coming anywhere close to mitigating what was there.
The fact is that the trees are gone.
Right.
But I think another part of this is right now he's under a stop work order there. We are hopefully coming out of winter. We're going to be into the spring and the rainy season, and as we work through this, it's still like to be able to get him in there at least to get some mulch and some seed down from an erosion protection standpoint.
Well, there's absolutely going to have to be some temporary protections put in, but I'm going to leave that a bit to the town engineer and yourself engineering to work up a plan for that. We absolutely need temporary measures put in for erosion and drainage protection.
We'd like to get the lumber off site. We'd like to get the site stabilized and then move forward with a plan that's going to be acceptable to the owner and to the planning board. So that's our intent.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just
Yes, that would be awesome.
quickly, so in the town zoning code, there is an exemption from a development permit for an EPOD, which is for emergency actions necessary to preserve the natural resources. So that's where it looks like there's kind of two separate tracks here. One is what can immediately be done to preserve and maintain to the extent necessary that there are erosion control measures that need to be implemented now, should be done now in connection with yourself and the building department. And then that will help stabilize things now. And then secondly, kind of moving forward with the permit, what measures are appropriate. And to that, I'd have one question. Have you had a chance to review the report from the Conservation Board?
I have not seen it, no.
Okay. Well, we should then maybe provide you with a copy of that, because I think they had some guidelines as to what some suggested mitigation measures should be. That's all I have, just in case people were.
You know, Mr. McMahon, this is heinous. You, for some reason, you seem to come before us in all of the most difficult positions, and you do a great job. You really do. Going down to Thomas Avenue, what I saw was complete destruction. You say to me, in the short term, we have no plans for anything. I'm not buying it. And I'm not here to decide whether Mr. Gilbert knew or didn't know about what his tax survey said, or whether it's an EPAT or not, okay? I asked you after the workshop to remit to us some sort of remediation plan that made some sense. Here we are in an official meeting, and you're telling me you're gonna short term, we're gonna throw some seed down, we're gonna do this. There's nothing done. And it's gonna cost a lot of money. And I said to you point blank, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. McMahon, because I have absolute respect for you. I said this could be a 4 or 5 year plan.
You did say that, yeah.
Did I not say that? Okay? Because I know how expensive this is going to be. And I'm not buying the fact that it was all cottonwood trees, because I grew up in Arundequoit and I was there as a kid. Okay? And I'm not buying that this is a short-term plan, that we're not trying to do something there to make money on it. I'm not buying it at all. Short-term, 6 months, 3 months, I don't care. I'm not buying it. You don't clear that kind of area out, and I'm not speaking to you negatively, by the way, either. Okay? I'm just saying, I'm not buying it. This is a terrible situation. And because it's an EPAT, like I said to you at the workshop, if I go to the IRS and I have an issue, it doesn't matter if I know or not. I'm wrong, they're going to get me. Forgiveness is not happening here. No more. End of story. It's got to be done correctly. And if it can't be done, but I need a plan.
Yeah, I agree that we need to put a plan together.
And I also believe, Mr. McMahon, just to say, we had a stop order from the town, okay? We need to know what would happen if the town were to go to court and find this gentleman guilty. And again, I'm not deciding whether he knew or didn't know. It's none of my business. I don't care. That's for a court to decide. But I want to know what the court would say to remediate this as well. Then I can make a decision. I need something. And tonight I have nothing. Absolutely nothing. The short-term plan, terrific. Throw some grass seed down, clean out the debris, etc. Beyond that, this is heinous. Absolutely heinous. And I truly do respect you, sir.
And I think our
No, I respect Mr. McMahon. He's in a funny spot.
Hold on.
He really is. This is crazy.
I don't think we need an immediate response. You're going to hear from a number of people.
Okay,
And you can respond.
fine.
Could I make a statement?
No.
Let's just complete the comments from the board, and then you can make a statement, and then we'll open it up to the public. Rich, any other?
No, I'd like to hear from the public.
Jay?
I'll hold my tongue for now.
Greg?
Same.
If you'd like to make a statement, then we'll do so, and then we're going to
Come
address.
up to
Please
the microphone.
address. Do we need your name and address, and then
Al Gilbert, 100 Joy Lane. Rochester, New York, 14617. We've been working with Lighthouse Point since '02. I probably have written at least 20 extensions of options. Every year I'd say, well, this is going to be it. They're going to get going. They have not managed to get going yet, and the cottonwood trees have been growing, and we have some people here tonight who would verify that. In fact, they'd like to have the few cottonwood trees that we left along the railroad cut down too. But anyhow, we started all about the 10th of, finally, after working 12 years, and I'm getting kind of a little bit older. I went from a young man of 75 to 88, waiting. And finally, I just got upset last fall, and I said, we got to clean that place up and make it look decent. Maybe someone else will come in and be interested in it, but we have to clean it up and make it look decent. And so in 2 weeks, we took all those cottonwoods down. Unfortunately, there were a couple oak trees. One of them was rotten inside, the other one was not. And we did take them down, and we probably should not have. But I wasn't supervising the job all the time. But anyhow, the last, after about 11 days, 10, 11 days of our taking the trees down, someone from the town came down, looked the place over, asked us, where is your holding pond? And I said, we showed it to him where it is, and it's there, and it'll catch any runoff. There's plenty of area there to catch it. And we thought we were doing everything right, and he left. He didn't know anything about an E-Pod either. He worked for the town. How do you expect me to know about it? So he didn't say anything.
Mr. Gilbert, can I just interject one thing? The fact that you're saying that you didn't know anything about the E-Pod, I don't find it difficult to believe. I find it impossible to believe, with the amount of time you spent by the water, that you didn't know that there was an E-Pod right there. It just doesn't, I can't fathom that you didn't know that. And you can say, I didn't know, all you want. It doesn't make it right, but it also, I don't think it makes it true. And I'm not going to say anything else about this.
I don't appreciate what you just said there.
Well,
Mr. Bashir, if I may interject for just a second. It doesn't matter. We're not here to decide. It is an E-Pod.
We're not here to throw accusations around.
I know, but it's...
He left. We didn't hear anything about it. We had quit cutting trees because it got so cold. We didn't cut any trees for probably 6 weeks. And then there were a few days in there, and he took about another 30, 40 trees down. And they're not all down yet. But you can talk to anyone you want to about how honest I am. And I have been that way all my life. I was a Boy Scout.
I was an altar boy. And so...
Anyhow, so then all at once this thing blows up and we make a big deal out of it. And all I want to do, if you could come down and look at the place, it's a worse mess than it was when we started. And we would just like to get the lumber cut up and off the land and cleaned up and grass sown and any shrubbery that the neighbors might want.
All right, well, we'll see, we'll get an opinion of what the neighbors may or may not want at this
Mr.
point.
Gilbert, I want you to know up front, this board, I'm not speaking for anybody but myself, but knowing these gentlemen as I do, I don't believe that there's a single person on this board who would question or impugn your integrity. It doesn't matter to us whether you knew or you didn't know, whether that was an EPOD or you could or you couldn't do something there. The issue is, our board determines town code, law, statute. And that's what we do. So if that makes sense to you, and I hope it does, because we're not saying that you're this or none of that, okay?
I just want to get it, I just want to get the wood out of there, and I'll clean it up and walk away from it, but I'll be relaxed because I won't be expecting someone to be buying it next year, and it'll just be there.
I appreciate that, sir.
Okay?
Sincerely.
All right, at this point, I'd like to open it up to public input.
Should I stay?
No, you can sit down. Relax.
Hi, I'm Charlie Valeska. I'm with the Rondequoit Conservation Board, and we did submit an official letter with our comments to the Planning Board dated March 6th. And I guess I just want to reiterate a couple of the points that we made in there. Again, I think it's been stated here by a number of the members of the Planning Board. I mean, that we believe that, I mean, this is a really very serious violation of the town code and the EPOD. The whole idea of preserving open land and forests like that. I don't remember ever seeing it personally myself, but when I went down there again today, it really upsets me to think that there was over an acre of mature trees. I mean, and those look like really very large trees. And I did notice that there are, I mean, a lot of them look like cottonwoods, but there definitely were a number of hardwood logs still left that I could tell. And so, I mean, it's a travesty. I mean, there's not much more you can say about it. We did look at actually some aerial photographs of the area, and I know the applicant has stated that there was some debris, concrete, and stuff like that. From the photographs, it looked like the debris was well away from the trees. And if there's a refrigerator or two or a little bit of other stuff in the woods, I mean, you don't need to cut down 200 trees to get a refrigerator or a little concrete out of there. I mean, it's just, you don't need to do that, again, even without seeing it. But again, the aerial photographs showed that the rubble, at least that we could see, was not near the trees. I guess we're concerned again that the trees were knocked down, right, whether an EPOD was known or not to exist, and that there really are plans for this area, and that probably the Planning Board would not have approved the removal of 200 and some trees to do whatever. I mean, let's store boats there, let's do whatever. And that somehow now the applicant's going to be rewarded, potentially, to all of a sudden start using it for something that the board would never have approved. So, I mean, that's just a concern, and I think I've kind of gotten that flavor from the Planning Board. Again, there's no way to restore this to the former way it was. I mean, we'll never see it in our lifetime if we want to see, 50, 60-foot trees. But, I mean, our recommendation was that the applicant be required to hire a professional landscaper and somehow bring it back to some kind of, I don't know, wild look. I mean, if it's meadows, maybe some mature trees along the fence line where the neighbors are, more, again, natural meadows, not lawn. We don't need any more grass. I mean, let's make it so that it's more amenable to wildlife, bird sanctuary, butterfly gardens, you name it, those type of things, not grass. I mean, we don't need any more grass around here. Just the thing was, I was looking at the short environmental assessment form. To me, it looked like items 2, 4, and 6 may need to be relooked at. To me, they didn't seem to be answered correctly, but that's just my opinion. So that's it. I don't know if there are any questions for the Conservation Board.
I do have one, Charlie.
Yeah, right.
as you know, I've respected the Conservation Board's opinion. If you were to put a program together, would the Conservation Board be willing to put together a remediation plan over a year, a course of time, to Mr. McMahon to resolve this issue?
Well, I think we'd be willing to review it.
Well, you can review it, no, you're not,
But we're not
asking the Conservation
landscapers.
Board to do.
No,
All I'm asking for is a recommendation, Mr.
I
Chairman.
mean, I think we would definitely be, we'd want to take a look at whatever plans were submitted. I mean, and it sounds like those will have to come, depending on what you decide, we'll have to come before here again, and we will look at those. And I think we probably would have some input at that time, but I don't think we want to get into designing
Not asking that-
remediation
not-
of a.
Not asking that at all.
Okay.
Asking for a recommendation based on
Definitely
what could
review,
come
and I
forward.
mean, again, I just threw out some ideas. I've seen other places where, like, again, butterfly gardens were put in. You can get some fairly mature conifers of sorts, that you could be placed there and at least could block some of that visual, noise from the neighbors, and maybe actual noise, maybe along the sort of the eastern boundary there. And again, that would be kind of again, you're not going to bring it back to the way it was, but at least somehow, again, that probably was I look around that area. I mean, there really are not that many areas where there's a lot of woods of any size. I mean, that probably was one of the largest wood lots in that area. I mean, maybe when you go down a little bit more, you get in the flats. Yeah, but I mean, between there and whatever, there's just nothing else really left around there now that that's gone. But yes, we would be. I think the board would definitely be willing to review any kind of plans.
That's what I would.
Yeah,
That's what I was looking for.
we would look forward to that.
Thanks,
So that's
Charlie.
it. Thank you very much.
As the microphone becomes available, please feel free to step up and speak.
Like Elvis would do at the sands, right?
Carla Jelinek, 60 Beacon View Court. My property is south and east of or actually south of where the trees were cut. And while I don't mind somebody cutting a cottonwood tree, especially if the cotton is in my face, I was a little surprised at how many trees disappeared. Now I get to see the bridge more. Now I have all the deer and the fox and everybody else in my backyard because they have no place else to hide but in my wooded backyard. So my concern is to make sure that whatever happens is not going to be pretty grass, but trees, bushes, someplace for the animals to hide, something for them to eat. And I am going to get an inordinate amount of dust in my yard because you know what happens when the wind blows, all the sand and dust goes somewhere else than where it should be. So we need to make sure, please, that something is done with the area that would be hopefully bushes and a dust control as well, an animal sanctuary. Thank you.
Sue McKenna, 50 Beacon View Court. I am a neighbor of Carla's, and actually my property, the back of my property is right on the edge of the area that was cleared. One of the big concerns that I have is I have no buffer now to the noise from the bridge. It's right out there. I can see it as clear as day. The cars going across, it's gotten very loud. In addition to what Carla said, I think it's really going to take away the wildlife that we've had there. I've been there since 1974. We built our house. Always have had the wooded area backed up to the river, and it's all changed. So I'm really saddened by what's happened.
Could I ask you a question? Did you notice this happening? I mean, how did this happen in your opinion? Did it? I mean,
It
did all of a
happened
sudden,
very quickly.
Like overnight, all the trees were gone.
My husband actually is the one that said, I think something's going on, and it looked as though the whatever they were using was that first down closer to the river. They were doing stuff, and then it just seemed like within a few days there was just all this debris over in the field. And I know that's an area that the deer a lot will bed down during the day. And we had fox, we had coyotes, we had all kinds of wildlife that actually go through there. And I think you're going to see some repercussions because of that. I don't know where the wildlife is going to go. probably
So
more
you
in
think
our
this
yards.
took place over the course of 3 or 4 days? I mean,
I would say, I mean, within a week or so, it seemed.
Right.
And if you look at that property now, when I look out my back window, I just see piles of dead wood. That's it.
While you're addressing that, if you go south of the property, down south on the river, staying on the east side, that eventually leads into Seneca Park, isn't that all still wooded area up and
Yes.
through there as well?
If, there was wooded area there, and then there was like a little bit of clearing. They put a big storm sewer in several years ago underneath the property, actually behind my house, that goes out to the river. So that little area right behind my house has never actually really been completely overgrown again. But everything past that was always wooded, and then just on the other side of that, you go into the deep woods. There's trails up there. The railroad area where the railroad is now has been a great path for, we've had joggers there, we've had races, bikes go through, and I mean, I would like to see a trail up through there for people to use.
In the area that was affected, and Craig, maybe you can address this as well, we're talking about how many acres are we talking about?
1.4.
1.4.
To the best of our ability, based on aerial photos.
So it's sort of just right on the edge of my property out towards Thomas Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Good evening. I sent an email to the town. I'm Kelly Adam, 110 Beacon View Court. I am at the tail end of what we call the bend, and I was out walking my pets, which I have done almost every single day for the past 7 years. I have utilized that trail and loved that trail, and I bought in this neighborhood because of its beauty and the fact that it was very wooded and it was private, and it afforded us the luxury of having some wildlife and some quiet and just the tranquility of the neighborhood. When I was out walking my dogs a few weeks ago, I heard the sound of timber cracking, and I became very concerned, went around the corner and saw what had happened, and it seemed that Mr. Gilbert has a pattern of doing this. My first experience with him was the first year that I lived on Beacon View Court, where he was poaching oak trees out of the private property of the Seneca Park, tail end of Seneca Park. During that process, he knocked down quite a small wooded area behind my home, and when he tried to pull this extremely large oak tree down, he also knocked over his heavy equipment, spilling oil and gasoline into the river. So these are my experiences with Mr. Gilbert personally. And now that he has done this, I used to be able to look out my back window and see trees, and now I see I guess the station house of the bridge. I can see every single light. The noise has become ridiculous, and my concern is that this wasn't just I wanted to clean up a mess. Mr. Gilbert is also neglecting to tell you that he was allowing dump trucks to come onto the property and dump large piles of road waste, concrete, asphalt, dirt, rocks, and this is now what he has spread into that environment on top of tearing down the trees. So my concern is now we have no buffer from the sound of the bridge. We have no buffer from the light pollution, noise pollution. Now we're going to have dust pollution. And my personal opinion is that Mr. Gilbert needs to be held accountable. He has been doing business on this river for 50 years, and I cannot believe that a man who owns a marina has no concept of zoning laws, and cannot believe that he did not know that this was an E-pod. My personal opinion is that he needs to make restitution at his expense. It needs to be replanted. I have had herds of deer in my backyard. I have had turkeys coming through. I have seen possums. Everything is looking for a place to go now and has no place to go. And I'm extremely disappointed that my street started reaching out to the town of Arundecoit at the very beginning of this process with phone calls, and we were not helped. We were said, I think it's the city's property. The city property said, I think it's Arundecoit's. Then we had people physically come down to the town and say, what's going on behind us? We were sent away then also. And the only action that we got was when we got into the tax record and were able to provide the town of Arundecoit with the name of the person involved and that it was exactly in West Arundecoit. So I'm really hoping that the zoning board doesn't let us down again and let Mr. Gilbert profit from what he's done. Because now this isn't just he knocked down some trees. This is a timber harvest. And where is all that timber going to go? I have a feeling this gentleman is now going to be selling it to lumber yards and profiting again. And that's where I kind of stand with this. And that's where I'm going to leave it.
Question for you. Do you have any photographic evidence of your allegation that he's dumped road debris, et cetera, to give to the town by chance?
I do not.
Because you obviously had, and by the way, very cute dog. You certainly had,
She was for scale.
You certainly had a lot of pictures of the down trees and everything.
At first, when I saw all that debris, I thought that that was actually the town of Arundecoit temporarily dumping road construction. I thought that the property belonged to the town of Arundecoit, and this was just a temporary thing. And then when it disappeared, I thought, oh, good, all that garbage is gone now. But now what I'm coming to understand was that Mr. Gilbert was taking money from these dump truck people to dump all this crap in.
When did that commence? Just out of curiosity.
I'm going to say that started last summer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next.
Good evening. Rick Chesterton, 911 Thomas Avenue. And that's the property right next door or adjacent to, what is it, 1027? I'm encouraged to hear the passion the board has for what has happened down there. It's very sad. I mean, to see what the devastation of the trees. The damage is done. Now what do we do about it? The impact is environmental. It's psychological. The concern now would be the impact on the soil erosion. Moving equipment to remove those trees, the heavy equipment's going to take to get them out of there. Is that further going to destroy the landscape there? And, you know, the effect of the runoff, I don't know. I mean, that's just my question. And like I say, we're new to Thomas, but been in Arundecoit 25 years. We just moved down to 911, which is right along the tracks. And yeah, the bridge is more apparent. The noise is louder. And what we do about it, I don't know. I don't fault someone. I don't want to get into that, but what do we do now? And again, I'm glad to hear you guys are so passionate about the loss of that timberland, because, you know, it's critical. I remember being on Simpson Road and wanting to have a tree removed, and it was almost impossible to get this tree, which was a silver maple, which, you know how they are. They just constantly dump things, but couldn't get it done. And now to think that, you know, 100 trees or so are missing, it is devastating. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Trinkler. I live at 100 Beacon View Court. My introduction to this neighborhood in 1978, the summer, July of 78, 2 weeks after I moved in, we had a lawsuit about a pond that was dug in illegally down Gilbert's property. That was my introduction to Arundecoit, old-time resident, but Beacon View Court. I agree with everybody that's been up here so far. My issue has been one issue for a long time. That is, there's no communication between Gilbert and us. It would work a lot better if we knew what was happening down there half the time. We would solve a lot of those problems ourselves. Nothing is ever communicated to us until after the fact. Our problem is about every 6 or 7 years, we have a similar problem with him and Voyager Marine. The oil slick and all of that down there, taking the tree down behind our houses, was city property up in there. That's city. And we had to deal with the whole city problem after we found out who was responsible for all this land. He was taking down a tree. He tipped over his machine, the oil spilled. It's a continuous, ongoing problem. My issue is this. We have been having trouble with the boaters down there, we have to put up with their noise all summer long. I understand that. We have to listen to the swearing on both sides of the river, not only ours, but in the fall, you can hear people whispering on the other side of the river sometimes. We need our buffer back. The trees have got to be preserved. Young trees have got to be brought in and reforest some of these trees. These trees behind our house are very old, and they're going to be coming down. Some of them are rotting now. We need new trees. Where he's taken it down, it's widened open this problem bigger. It's a bigger problem now. But we need a buffer. The buffer is trees, bushes, whatnot. And that will keep the dust out of our houses. That will keep some of the noise muffled and so forth. We'd get along a lot nicer if he'd inform us of what's happening. I would like to know what his rules are down there on those boaters. Right now, last fall, we have boaters urinating up in the forest again. I mean, this is an ongoing problem with us. Every 6 or so years, we either have to come to the town hall, or, as we did the first time I was introduced, we had to hire a lawyer and sue him on the pond. So that's where I'm coming forward. Let's solve the problem. Let's give us a buffer that we need between the boaters and us. We're not going to solve it completely, but it'll help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Salvatore Morello. I reside at 110 Beacon View Court. I'm also a realtor with North Niagara Realtors, and my concern is, number one, when you go look at the property, it's just destruction. And Irondequoit's been kind of tough with the real estate market. Irondequoit's been very difficult. Resale's been difficult. My concern is, number one, now people going looking in that neighborhood, you know, the number one reason to buy over there was because of the privacy and the trees and the seclusion. Now you drive down Thomas Avenue and you see the apartment buildings, you see the bridge. It looks very commercial. It doesn't look like it used to look, number one. Number two, I also find it kind of interesting that Mr. Gilbert decided to do all this in the dead of winter when it was probably -5 degrees, where people really weren't out looking, you know, at what was going on. So I kind of find that a little suspicious. That's my opinion. You know, there's that old saying, better to ask forgiveness than ask permission, and I kind of feel this is kind of what happened here. My wife is Kelly Adams. She's the one that just spoke. But it's just very disheartening, and I'm emotional about it, because just when you go down there and look, it's just, you know, all this beautiful nature it's just totally gone. So, you know, again, resale is a big concern now. What's going to happen with the property values over in that neighborhood? It's been difficult in Irondequoit. I think this is going to kind of compound the issue also. So, thank you very much.
I'm Heather Chesterton. I live at 911 Thomas Ave. We're fairly new in the area, and one of the reasons we moved there was because of the beauty in our backyard. It's just totally trees and whatnot, and you couldn't even see the Stetson Street Bridge. Now we have a very clear picture of the Stetson Street Bridge. I never really considered myself being a naturalist or anything like that. My husband is. But you know, I have to tell you, now that this has happened and I look out there, it really hits me psychologically, whatever you want to call it. It's really upsetting that it's just like, what happened? It feels like a sci-fi movie or something, you know? It's just like all of a sudden it's barren. When you drive over the Stetson Street Bridge and you look like this, you just can't believe what you see. And it did happen very, very quickly. It was very quick. My husband said one day to me, you know, I'm hearing sawing and everything back there. And I was like, really? And, you know, about maybe 4 or 5 days later, I happened to pay attention and look, and I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck's going on back there? And then he had said, well, I took a walk back there, and there's a lot of trees down. And then after that, he said that, you know, he'd seen them put the sign up, you know, stop work order. So I don't know what the answer is. You know, obviously it's kind of a done deal, but I think it's pretty darn sad, you know, and so I just think people should be held responsible, and I'm happy to hear the feedback that people are concerned, and hopefully we'll pull together and figure something out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Any more? I think we're going to leave the public hearing open anyways because we have no real plan before us. Yes. Yes, you may, Michael. Excellent.
It appears that over 1.4 acres of land was disturbed. I've seen some of the pictures. You know, there's quite a bit of clear cutting of trees. Some of the tree trunks have been excavated and removed. It's apparent that there was quite a bit of heavy equipment in there to accomplish that work. And I think there should be some assessment of the amount of disturbed area. If it is in fact 1.4 acres, I think you certainly need an erosion control plan, but you also need to get coverage under the general permit. And so I think what I had seen here as a erosion control plan, even though temporary, I think is rather inadequate. There's really not much information on that plan. It refers to seeding and mulching as noted, but there's no noting of what the mulch is going to be, how it's going to be put down, what the application rate is. There's no contours, no nothing. So I think we really need a good erosion control plan very soon, and some assessment of the disturbed area, and if it is in excess of an acre, to have the applicant and their engineer apply for coverage under the general permit.
I don't, well.
Can I still be in the public?
Sure. Still open, so.
Come on up.
I'm husband of Carla, so we live at 60 Beacon View. My name is Hugo Jelinek, and we have been living there since 1980. So we have seen already many plans of what's going to happen to that area along the river south of the bridge. They were plans for parks, for new marinas, for this and that, and also somebody wanted to put a big boat launch approximately where now the clearing is. And I and my wife, we were the driving force fighting the boat launch. We said, don't do it here, do it on the other side, and that was the result that they put it in Charlotte. So what you see in Charlotte now, that we kind of fought off that area. And we were also told that building here somewhere may be next to impossible because there is 70 feet deep peat moss. How do you build houses on that? Well, anyway, at the same time, we were thinking if it gets built up by whatever, family housing, some park, recreational pool, showers, whatever you have, what kind of access will be to this newly developed area? Because even now you have to drive long way around, down almost to Shumway and back through dirt roads and huge potholes and rocks and all that to get there. And I was told by somebody, I don't know by whom here in the town, that town will never allow connection between Thomas Avenue directly west, where now the New York State built the road for building the bridge. And then we were told, well, New York State put it there, New York State will take it out. So probably now it's in the takeout mode. But with this new development, I'm again worried that somebody will come with the idea that the best access to whatever is going to happen there will be a big road from Thomas Avenue right west to whatever is going to be there. And I would like to know what's the town's opinion on this, if the idea that that should not be allowed is still alive and well
in the town of Irondequoit.
That's not an action before us, and I don't know how that we would address that because there's no plans and nothing in that regard, but at this point, I don't know how anyone would react to that. I mean,
I just assume that the town controls new building of roads, right?
you're mixing up a hypothetical with the actuality with what we have right now. Maybe you could talk to Nick afterwards, and maybe they can talk to specific regards to the road or any temporary road.
Okay, that's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm curious why we wouldn't positive deck this and require an environmental impact statement.
Yeah, I mean, the board certainly has the option to do that. I mean, they haven't seen a plan yet. I mean, there needs to be some plan submitted, and you know, whether we go through the EIS process or whether we go through the process of receiving a plan, sending that to the conservation board and reviewing it. I mean, if there's a benefit from doing an EIS or not, I mean, I think personally, I mean, one goal should be how soon can a plan be implemented. It sounds like there needs to be some emergency erosion control measures, which are separate, which need to happen immediately, and then, you know, secondly, you know, how long a process do we want to look at in terms of doing some sort of restoration plan?
Wouldn't the town be in charge of implementing an emergency plan immediately?
Well,
That wouldn't be us, would it?
Yeah, no, they would have to, working with Mike, and we would get their plan, the engineers, no, but they would present the plan to us, and we should set a time frame for them to get us that plan, and what is reasonable. And I guess that's where I'd ask Greg or Mike, what would be a reasonable time frame to get that plan back, us to comment, and for them to implement it?
Wait.
If I might, forgive me for interrupting. 2 questions.
I was starting and then you jumped in, but go ahead.
2 questions. There's got to be an emergency plan, then there's got to be a long-term plan. Shouldn't the emergency plan come from you and Mike?
No.
No? Okay.
For reasons of, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, is this would be more of from a liability standpoint in terms of executing the work too. The town wouldn't be performing the work. They would be performing the work. Right, Greg?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's not action from this board.
Yes.
Right, it's in consultation with the building.
Correct.
Department. Right.
Peter, you gonna say something?
What mechanisms are in place to enforce the urgent response to the temporary or stabilization remediation?
In terms of?
I mean, is there any actionable? I mean, I would like to. I mean, there should be erosion control and something put in place immediately.
Yes. I guess, Greg, in some ways, when we've spoken about this in terms of how do we enforce that time frame, because really when you talk about any town court action or action we would do in relationship to the code violation, that's really a separate track from this, because they would. So this is really about remediating the environmental issue as it stands now in a timely manner, and I kind of defer to Greg on this in terms of.
I mean, let's ask the applicant, Mr. Meehan, how soon,
Well, I have another question. I mean, isn't this a citation or a misdemeanor or something that can be filed?
Yes.
Yeah, it can, and I think we're looking at all of our options here. I mean, if we want to go the route of you want to pursue a zoning enforcement proceeding, you can do that. Your remedy is there's a nominal fine associated with that for a first-time offense, which can be done. If a plan isn't submitted to the satisfaction, the town reserves the right to pursue an action under the zoning code violation. I mean, that's not going to put the trees back up. I mean,
No.
that's part of you know what's available for the town to do for what's occurred on the property. That's kind of looking back. That's what happened. And now what this board's trying to do is looking forward, what can be done.
Just a question for the attorney. This is an ongoing act, so there's no statute of limitations issue with regard to filing that action, is there?
No, there's not.
But what we have now is we have an applicant that is at least verbally in front of us saying that they want to try to make this better. And I think we should try to, at least at this point, as long as we still have the ability to file later if we want to try to get them to do it on their own rather than us trying to force it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, but to Peter's point, though, this is the classic definition of a positive declaration. You can't get, it's textbook. And I think we need to go through the long form, I don't know when, shortly, and see if, we need to go through the long form just to make sure that we dot all our I's and cross the T's and everything, but this is...
I would agree with that. Mr. Ritchie said, can we table this to be able to do that, Mr. Chairman?
Do we have a complete application at this point? Is this, I mean, what is our timeframe as regards to this?
Did you have a
I don't
comment
believe
about
it-
how soon you're going to have...
What
the
I'm asking right
remediation?
now is if we have a complete application, whether there's actually any time frame initiated.
No, I mean, the board's not under any time frame to issue a positive or negative declaration right now. I mean, it sounds like, from what I'm hearing from the board, there's not a complete application that's been submitted. It sounds like a mitigation plan needs to be submitted and potentially a long form EAF too. And then at that point, I think when the board has that to consider, they can determine if this is something that is going to have a significant adverse impact and should be a positive act or not. Or
In my opinion, you have until the next workshop, and that doesn't preclude, I'm not saying, I think we need to have remediation start initiating immediately out there, and you need to get with the town engineer and get a remediation plan. And before our next workshop, we need to see a plan put in front of us, at least something on what we're going to do with this. And I'm talking a significant engineering plan. And you need to involve landscapers and someone well beyond our expertise that's going to describe how we're going to restore this environment. We are not going to accept a routine seed and grade on this site. There's no stretch of the imagination that we're even coming anywhere close to this. And if Mr. Gilbert thinks that he's going to be allowed to put this into some sort of serviceable use after this, he's got another thing coming. As far as we're concerned, this is going to be restored in some way to some naturalistic effect, and it is being taken off. You know, it's not something that's going to develop a development plan at this point. And we're not talking parking boats. We're not talking any of that.
There's no intention for a development plan on this, and I mean...
Mr. McMahon, can I just interrupt for a
Sure.
second? I'll tell you what's really bothering me. Is 2 weeks ago, Mr. Gilbert sat to my left and told me at the workshop and the rest of us that he did this for the benefit of the people in the neighborhood because of cottonwood trees, and that he was removing garbage, and that he thought the neighbors would appreciate it. And today he stood in front of us at the same microphone you're at, and he told us that he got upset last fall, one day, because the Lighthouse Point project wasn't going forward and the sale wasn't moving quick enough. And when he got upset, he clear-cut the trees. And what he did that because he was making it more suitable for someone else to develop. And that really, really bothers me because we've got two exact opposite answers in a 2-week period.
Is the property for sale or not?
It is under contract, to the best of my knowledge, it is under, again, I'm not privy to the real estate deals. To the best of my knowledge, it is under contract as it has been for many, many years with
In your opinion,
a party.
In your opinion, clearing the land. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Anyway,
yeah.
I'm sorry. We need positive action. And I'm not just talking, come back and clarify the level and extent of where you're putting grass.
What I would...
I mean, I want to see, I mean, we need somebody with botanists,
What I would
ecologists,
propose-
landscapers.
Prior to that workshop meeting,
Right.
we stand ready, and immediately our town engineer and our Department of Public Works to implement, we will lift the stop work order for the emergency implementation to rectify the erosion control measures. This is something, the workshop, that needs to happen tomorrow.
I will meet with the town as early as tomorrow with a plan showing I don't want to call it mitigation, but erosion control measures to stabilize the site, prevent any further erosion, to address the current condition of the site, and meet with town staff and implement that immediately. By the next workshop, we will put together, based on the comments we've heard here tonight, what we've heard from the board, put together, our landscape architect will put together a mitigation plan, working with Mr. Gilbert to try and address some of the comments we've heard and have that to the board for the workshop to begin a working process on that, let the Conservation Board review it, and start with that from a mitigation standpoint. But I understand, and we fully agree with the stabilization of the site. We'd like to have the owner begin to work on that as soon as the town agrees with what we're proposing, and so we don't, as we get into the spring, we don't suffer any erosion or other damage to our property or the neighbor's property.
Can we make them post a bond?
We've done it in the past.
You probably, yeah.
A bond or a letter of credit? I mean,
We do that for large development projects.
We've done that in the past.
Yeah, we've done that.
and I'm telling you, if there's not significant advancement on this project by our next workshop, I'm going to endeavor to have everything to our power to cite, fine, whatever, POSDEC, anything that we can to make this encumbered in a proper manner.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like you to be involved in the remediation process from beginning to end, if that's amenable to Mr. Weatherby.
Oh, sure. No, absolutely.
Good, thank you.
And we understand that you're a professional representing your applicant, and please don't take anything personally.
But I understand what needs to be done. We will, again, I think our first concern is getting the site stabilized, which is the town's first concern. And I stand ready to meet with them immediately. And once we get that process underway, we've got a couple weeks to work on a mitigation plan that we can get submitted and appear at your next workshop and discuss it further.
Again, we appreciate your involvement, we really do.
So
Thank you.
And we'll also, just to address the town engineer's comments, what we'll need to do, and this will have to happen shortly, we'll actually go out with our crew and survey the disturbed area. We can determine, again, everything I've done so far has been working off of aerial photos and surveys that we've done on the property. And our surveys so far on the property have been boundary surveys. We'll obtain some more information and better define whether it's 1.4 acres or 1.1 acre, whatever it is, and try and, as far as the mitigation portion of this, address those concerns. Okay. I can have an erosion control mitigation plan ready by tomorrow. That would be fine. I'd be glad to do that, and the sooner the better. Bob Kiley? Okay. Okay, Kiley. Okay, all right, well, I'll get the information. We'll get this plan submitted for erosion control and get the site cleaned up to a point where we can work on this mitigation.
Once we'll approve it, then we'll lift it.
That's right. And the
We'll be down there every day checking to see what's going on. Just to make sure there's compliance.
Yeah.
Do we table this now, Mr. Chairman, or? No, I mean, is
There's
that
not a complete application for us, therefore we're not tabling anything because there's nothing to, there's no action. to
Does
be
that,
made.
one of the residents has a question. I don't know if you want to.
We could take other additional questions after the fact.
So we don't need to table it then?
There's no application before us. I mean, we're taking this in advisory. We don't, technically, there's no timetable initiated because we don't deem the application complete.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Seeing none?